So Commissioner Creary, I'll leave it to you to give any final overview of the recommendations. We will give just a few minutes for any high level questions, any high level discussions, high level, not minutia, and then we're taking a vote. Commissioner Creary, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Chair Falconley. Again, I sent the link out to the 3.0 document, and some of you did add comments. Basically, I will just say that Commissioner Coles and I sort of, as things came in and as we were going through them, tried to address and incorporate comments that you all have submitted. And again, to those of you who did submit comments, thank you. I mean, the level of engagement, has been wonderful. And so, as I said, we kind of went through it, and again, sort of even unto about 5 minutes ago, we're still, sort of working on incorporating those. So I don't know if Commissioner Coles, you'd like to sort of talk about process, kind of how we went about doing this, or sort of what some of the bigger updates were that, and again, I don't know if I should share screen or if you want to share the screen, but yeah, we have 8 sheets and I counted 133 recommendations, across those 8 things. So, there's a lot there.
Every time I try to share the screen, it turns off my camera. So I don't think I can share screen. But just in terms of some of the bigger things. Okay, just in terms of some of the kind of bigger things that we addressed today that wouldn't have been in the version that you received last night, Stephanie and I had a long conversation about some of the criminal justice recommendations focused on whether independent cooperation would be required for any allegations that were based on circumstantial evidence or on an informant. And we wanted to strike the proper balance between protecting the victims and also making sure that the accused has their due process rights and that their guilt is not being assumed because of an allegation. And so where we landed on that, I can tell you the row to go down to, Nick. This recommendation shows up in 3 separate places, and the first of those is on row 29. Dealing with informants, and what we basically said that we wanted to do, and this was largely based on Stephanie's Title IX investigation experience, is we wanted to get prosecutors to do their due diligence to make sure that the person that's being accused could have it's even reasonably possible that they've committed the crime. And so the thought is by exercising some due diligence, by looking at, where the person was at the time, any potential conflicts, and them being the person that is accused of being the person, to sort of like weed that out and do that first level of due diligence rather than simply taking the allegation and then using that to charge. And a lot of times the prosecutors are getting their information based on the police department's investigation. And so this is really asking them to take their own independent look at the evidence and see if the suspect could reasonably have committed the alleged crime. And so that same recommendation flows through from the informants, also evidence-based purely on circumstantial evidence. And then there's a third recommendation on row, it's dealing with the judges and asking them to kind of check the prosecutor's work. And that is on row 38. And so it says the judiciary should require prosecutors to submit their documented due diligence. And so again, this is just kind of another tool to make sure the prosecutors are taking all the necessary steps and not just charging people based on flimsy evidence. So that was one big change this morning. Another change was in the media section. And again, this was Stephanie and I going back and forth, just because of First Amendment concerns, wanting to not make it look like we were violating the media's First Amendment rights. And instead, we are encouraging them to take certain actions to increase fairness and reduce bias and things like that. And so it was just kind of putting that lens on encouraging them to do these things. And a third area, and this one was more me looking at it than conversations with Stephanie, but in the mental health section, I kind of changed the focus to, instead of having sentiments expressed in the report that touches on various different principles, I wanted to create grants to fund initiatives that would support those different healing and truth-telling principles. And so that's kind of one change, is going from include sentiments to the effect of, to create grants that could fund these same types of things. And so the language is primarily the same. It's just a slight difference in framing, and also adding some legal justifications for those ideas with the connection to lynching. And so Chris, so Stephanie included the comments in column G. I think most of the comments in column G were from Stephanie. And as we reviewed people's comments and tried to incorporate people's comments, we would either try to mark them as resolved, or if they were written in the body of the spreadsheet, we would delete them as they were addressed. And so if you see your comment missing, that may be why, is because it may have been incorporated already as an edit. But if you feel like whatever's there still doesn't address your concern, please flag that for us now, and we can try to figure out if we may have missed the intent behind your comment. So I think those are the main things that have changed since you guys received the document Sunday evening.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Coles. Thank you, Commissioner Creary, as well. Are there any, again, high-level questions about any of the recommendations? I'll stop sharing the screen. Back real quick. Commissioner Hughes, I see your hands.
Thanks. So 2 comments. One is on the symbolic category, item number 4, and it has to do with the pardons for the lynching victims. And the question I have is, I think there has been some discussion with this group about whether or not pardoning someone who has not been, who perhaps did not commit a crime at all, is that positive, or does that send the wrong message? I think different people have different points of view on that. So not to suggest that that recommendation doesn't still stand, but I wonder if there should be some comment along with that recommendation that we acknowledge the fact that a pardon doesn't confer a feeling that the individual was guilty of a crime to be pardoned, but that it is a symbolic act. I don't know. So that's the first point. The second point is on the materials section, recommendation number 16, to do with the Chipman Center. I had sent Nick something about this, that they recommended the Maryland State Historic Landmark designation for the Chipman Center. There is no such thing as a Maryland State Historic Landmark designation. There is individual listing on the National Register, which they do not have, which would be a good thing to do, or there could be local landmark designation. Should we clarify based on systems that actually exist, or because they specifically asked for Maryland State Historic Landmark designation, should we just go with that, and it can be figured out later how to affect something that approaches, the intent behind that recommendation? So those are my 2 questions, comments on the recommendations.
Yeah. With regard to the first one, yeah, I know there's been, we've had, conversation about, what do those pardons convey? And my view and my understanding of it is, it's like, issuing the pardon isn't so much acknowledging that, they may have committed a crime for which they're being pardoned, as much as this is a recognition of the fundamentally flawed judicial process that happened, and I think to say that it was a judicial process is being incredibly generous. But yeah, I think if we can make a note that yes, there are differing opinions about this, but this is kind of where we're coming at, in making that recommendation.
I like Chris's suggestion in the comment. Maybe it should be an exoneration instead of a pardon. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that works, and again, I mean, if I think a pardon is maybe one way to do that. Yeah, or vacating. Yeah, I mean, if there's a way that we can do that, that would be fine.
Commissioner Haley, I see your hand.
I just throw it in really quickly. There was, as Michelle said, there was a long discussion years ago when the whole pardon thing happened, and part of what the question that was posed was that what would they be getting pardoned for? We're pardoning the fact that you were lynched? No, I mean that doesn't make any sense. The only people who should be pardoned, who could be pardoned, would be the people who perpetuated the crime. And that's not what we're doing. We're talking about the people who are the victims. And I think at most, we can't pardon them for something that they're not at fault for. And so I think exonerating, and even that, I'm kind of like, well, what are we exonerating? Again, are we exonerating the fact that they were lynched? I mean, even that is kind of not great, but I think it's more along the lines that they have no blame. There should be no blame ascribed to these people who were victims, whether or not they were guilty of the crime. This is not what this commission is about. It's about the fact that these individuals did not receive due process, and they were the victims of mob violence. So that's why I went in that direction.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Haley. Commissioner Snowden, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just was going to, as someone who was involved in getting pardons for people, when Governor Glendenning gave his pardon, it really went with what Nicholas was saying. It recognized that the system was unfair, and he made it very crystal clear. It's not a question of whether the person committed the crime or not. But I think we find pardon in the sense that we know that the criminal justice system failed, and that's what the pardon is based on. Not so much as guilt or innocence, but it's really indictment of the system. And each time that was used, think of the case of John Snowden, although he was not a victim of a lynching, when the governor pardoned him, and by the way, that's the first time a pardon has ever been given to anybody who had been, and he had been dead for 80 years. But I remember the commission who did the review all came back with the same conclusion, that the judicial system, as it was comprised of that day, was just totally unfair. And that's why he got the pardon. So I think we put a language into that, we'll be fine. We don't have to get into whether it was exonerated. We just know the system failed them.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Snowden. Appreciate you. Let me see if there are any other hands that I may have missed. I don't believe so. Okay, so any other questions, any other thoughts about the totality of the recommendations that we have reviewed?
One question. I know I'm coming in late, emailing in between classes. I don't know if Nick, were you able to see the comments? Since when I did them initially on the 3.0, it registered as anonymous since I had access issues coming in. Did you see what I wrote to you?
Yes, we did. And just to make sure that we have, the links that you included, I reopened that so they are back, on the spreadsheet, so that we can access those as evidence to support the recommendation.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yep, we got you.
All right. Great. Commissioner Coles, I see you here.
I just want to circle back to to Elizabeth's second question about the Chipman organization. And my suggestion would be to modify it so it does fit what's possible. And so I just was working on some language, and I wanted to make sure I captured your words correctly. Would it be a recommendation to include them on the National Historic Registry? Is that how it should be phrased?
Yeah, to nominate that property to the National Register of Historic Places. That would be
Okay.
what would need to happen.
I lost what tab it's under. What is it? It's material. Okay, I found it. Okay, so it's a recommendation to nominate the center to be on the National Register of Historic Places.
Correct.
Okay. And also you said, and to include it, what was the local piece? How would that be phrased?
Yeah, it would be to include it as a designation as a local landmark. Although they may or may not actually want that, because then that controls what can happen to the exterior of the building by the local Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay.
but-
So do you think we should
Yeah.
leave that off for now and just focus on the national?
I think so. Since they sort of specifically said a Maryland historic landmark, I think what they want is that higher level recognition of the historical significance of this property, which is what the National Register listing would do.
Okay.
But can I insert here? Because I've worked on National Historic Registry and that process. It works well for national if there's a local designation first, because that sets the precedence for them to even look at it as a national historic site. So the idea is, does it hold enough weight in the state that then it can then carry to the nation? So if you eliminate the state level designation, it doesn't get it's not going to garner the awareness or the interest for them to even try to look at it on a national registry. Because now you're petitioning to the overall Department of Park Service to then look at it. And if it doesn't have a state one, they'll just go, well, I've never heard of it. State doesn't even designate it, da, 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 da. So it would be better. This is just my recommendation. If you have some kind of state designation, or at least some acknowledgement, whether it's just a placard, a marker. It could just be a marker if you want to do that, but it has to have some kinds of state designation and recognition before it gets to a national stance.
Okay. So maybe that's where we can get the state recognition, through a marker.
You can get it through a marker. So that's going through your preservation office for the state.
Okay.
And again, I don't know this entity, but this entity has to know how the protocols will work. So if they're worried about exterior and all those other things, yes, that's a concern. But in order for a national registry, for it to take a hold, they're going to need to see something on the state level. It can be a marker. It has to be something that the state now recognizes.
Okay, so this is what I have right now. Nominate the Charles Chipman Center to be included on the National Register of Historic Places and add a marker through the State Preservation Office to safeguard it from neglect, redevelopment, and erasure. Any objections?
Oop, that sounds good.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
And I
Commissioner
don't know
Snowden,
if we reached a conclusion on the language, whether we were sticking with pardon, exoneration, vacate, or what. I don't know if there was a conclusion on that.
any immediate thoughts on that? And in the meantime, as people are thinking, Commissioner Snowden, I'll come to you.
Thank you, sir. Again, on Commissioner Cole's, what you just said, I think you should take Nicholas' point of view in terms of the judiciary not being just, and use that as the definition why we support this symbolic pardon. But I had another question for the chair. Now that we've come to this conclusion, could you help me walk through the process? We get the recommendations done. Is there a plan to brief the governor and the top leadership beforehand? Is it going to be a press conference? What is the thinking of your thinking and the group's thinking on how we want to present this? I would assume that we want to get the maximum impact that we can. And given what's happening in the General Assembly that's coming up in 2026, I think we may want to get ahead of the ball game so we don't get lost with two other controversies that I think is going to dominate, at least in the beginning, of the General Assembly. One being reparations, which is, as you know, a big issue, and other being potential budget cuts. So is it a plan to brief anybody in advance, or how do we move
So,
forward?
so I would certainly love to. My immediate thought is to certainly connect with Delegate Pena Melnick, who I think is our most esteemed champion of the commission. Certainly, Commissioner Snowden, I will follow your insight and guidance on who else will be willing to talk with us. I'm happy to be a mouthpiece. That's cool. I think as we get to, so certainly the overall plan for 2026 is to use that last half year that we have as our advocacy phase. I agree that we should start that process now. I think now that we will take this vote on the recommendations, we will, continue the process of finalizing the final report. We can start our advocacy at this point. So I think that's a conversation you and I can have. Other commissioners who are interested in what the advocacy can look like, who we should talk to, obviously within the General Assembly, the governor, and even other agencies that I know we represent. We can start to craft that strategy now, since we do have about a few months before the General Assembly does officially begin. So thank you, Commissioner Soto, for bringing it up. And yes, let's start to think about how we tell this story to those to that leadership.
Let me just add, just for the group's thinking, particular leadership, it's better there not be blindsided. I think the governor would be more than open to sitting down, getting a briefing on this before it happens. The same thing with the Attorney General, and the same thing with the leadership. Some of the recommendations, clearly, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen with their support. I think giving them the courtesy of sitting down, seeing the report in advance before it's publicly released, have an opportunity to ask questions, get clarification, will ensure a greater reception on the part. I don't know whether we want to, I definitely think we want to brief the leadership, both in the House of Delegates as well as on the Senate side, and the governor. And I would add the Attorney General, because some of the recommendations, many of the recommendations, is not going to happen without their support.
No, absolutely. So I'm in full support of that, and I ask all of you in your various capacities to help us with making those arrangements. So I know that our colleagues at Office of the Attorney General could hopefully get us audience with Attorney General Brown. Commissioner Snowden, I know you're well connected. So again, however we can get to Governor Moore, please help us out on that. I know I can text Delegate Pena Melnick. So, we have our ways of getting to those who can be supporters of our efforts. So let's, now that we will take this vote soon, very soon, we can start to transition to those particular efforts. So again, thank you, Commissioner Snowden, for raising that very important point. Okay, I don't know who DBDA is.
That's me, David. Sorry.
Oh, okay,
I'm
cool.
on my other computer crashed, so I'm using my nonprofit. I apologize.
Gotcha. Okay, no problem. Vice Chair Chavis, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've been working with the Chipman Center, and I forwarded you the letter that the current president had been working on. And so I think what needs to be understood is that, like, the processes, people are aware of the formal processes, I guess, in terms of the designation, but I think it's almost like that's not enough, because, and it's not just Chipman, it's all the sites that we have documented that are in danger of, erasure. I feel that there needs to be something more than just fill out the application as usual. There needs to be some type of, these are things that I feel like the legislature are easy lifts for the legislatures to do. And I think that bills should be presented and recommended to automatically, or some type of way of streamlining the recognitions of these sites. If there is not a process for markers, there should be a process. Like North Carolina has a civil rights trail. Like, there's different trail, and they partner with an outside organization to honor those trails. Like, there has to be some type of way that we are making sure that these things are not erased. For example, I mentioned I've been working with Chipman, but the fire department, the place where George Armwood his body was placed, the county fire department, I guess the city now owns that, and it can be torn down at any time. Like, there are certain, and no one knows where these places are. I feel like there just has to be something more formal. And I think a recommendation for legislation is more stronger than just saying, "Oh, let's nominate the Chipman." Like, those are just my thoughts.
Thank you for that, Vice Chair Chavis. Commissioner Hughes, and then Commissioner Coles, I'll come to you.
Yeah, so sorry to complicate matters by bringing this up in the first place, but I think that's really helpful, Commissioner Chavis, to understand what was meant by that language. So I'm happy to withdraw my comment, and if we wanted to just go back to what the original language was, what sounds like it is, the desire is to go beyond existing systems that are in place to honor and recognize historic properties and do something more than maybe that Maryland State Historic Landmark language, which no such thing exists presently, is the desired language, because the idea is to create something, in fact, that is new, to affect this sort of protection and honor and recognition of places associated with this history, and particularly the Chipman Center. So I'll just put that out there.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Coles.
So I just want to direct everyone's attention to the symbolic reparations tab that's in the spreadsheet. And that's where we've made more of these broad brush recommendations for recognizing, honoring historical site. We received the letter from the Chipman Center, I think maybe on Friday, and we just wanted to basically acknowledge the request by putting it in there, even though we have larger umbrella recommendations that address historic preservation. So what I would just ask anyone to do, I mean, we're at the voting point now. What would be most helpful is to have the language written down, or really to look at the language we already have and see if what you're saying is not already addressed. And if you have an idea that either goes further or needs to amend what we have, please, I mean, it's a little late now, but maybe we can vote on an amendment or something. I don't know, but I don't think we're at a place where we're gathering suggestions. I think we have to look at what we have and either right now in the comments, say what you would add to the document, or maybe have a chance to address it through edits when it's actually in the report. I'm not really sure what else we can do with that right now.
Yeah, I thought I just said that a recommendation for new legislation that goes beyond.
Right.
So an actual legislation that will protect these sites, a priority from the state,
Right.
that shows that. So I think that's
I'm saying we have, if you look at the symbolic tab, we have recommendations like that. So if you could just see if what you're saying isn't already in there. And if it's not, you see what I mean? Because we have a whole tab on different things.
Yeah, that's fine. I guess I trust your word for it, and that's fine.
All right, great. Before we take our vote, because we are coming at noon, and I do want to be mindful of time, Commissioner Snowden, last word, and then we're taking a vote.
Just suggest that one of the things, once the report is completed, that we may want to do, this is for generations yet unborn, is get one of our federal representatives to put the report in the congressional record, so to be there forever. It gives it a national look, and would probably be the first state in the nation to do so. But given the number of lynchings we've had, it would be great to have a congressional representative place it in the congressional record. Thank you, sir.
All right, let's make sure we add that for sure. Commissioner Carrera, I see your hand.
Yes, Janice just reminded me that they had come across a case, I think it was in 1853, of a slave, an enslaved person named George, who was apparently murdered. Whether or not it was lynching, that's something that we need to determine. They found something from the General Assembly saying that he was killed by a mob. I came across stuff in the Baltimore Sun that basically said that he was killed by two people. And so the question is, should we include this case of George? And I'm trying to find the correspondence where they shared that, and and I shared the information there. But I think, this is kind of one of those things where we need to have some sort of conversation. And again, this is probably the worst possible time to bring this up. especially since I can't find the documentation here. But I need to at least put that out there, and maybe we can, since we're talking about recommendations today, let's deal with the recommendations, and then perhaps for October, we can decide whether or not to include this case of George. That way, that will give me a little bit of time to find the documents and share that with folks, and we can do that and then adjust as necessarily. At this point, it's a matter of just, if we include it, taking the time to write up, that and include that in the, in the case studies. But that is something that, we will need to discuss.
Okay. No, thank you for that, Commissioner Creary, and we can definitely make that focus of the October monthly business meeting. So thank you for that. All right. Are we ready? All right, we're doing this. So I want to make sure that the language for the vote is correct before we officially do it. So we are voting to accept the totality of recommendations as have been compiled and presented to us. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Cool. All right. All right. Anybody want to make the official motion? I guess I should do it. All right, I'll do it. Okay. I guess that's my job, right? All right, cool. Here we go. So I move that the Maryland Lynching Truth and Reconciliation Commission formally accept the recommendations for repair and justice and reconciliation of this history and of this legacy as has been compiled, crafted, curated by Commissioner Creary, Commissioner Coles, Stephanie Franklin, and many, many others, us as well, for inclusion in the final report.
Second.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Does anyone oppose? Does anyone abstain? We got recommendations. All right, motion carries. All right, we did it. Okay, so those are the recommendations, and I think they're thorough. I think they are as complete as we can get it, and again, it gives us a lot of places to work with in terms of bringing, again, some semblance of justice to this legacy. So thank you all. Again, special love to Commissioner Creary, Commissioner Coles, Stephanie Franklin, all those in the Reconciliation and Justice Committee, certainly to the Commissioner at large, our staff, for getting us to this very, very important point. To 3PV, thank you for being patient with us. Thank you for, again, your insight and your flexibility. And we look forward to, again, this final report that's going to be crafted. With that, thank you all. Be safe. Go do your thing. It's Monday. Have fun.
And if I could say a really quick thank you again to Commissioner Coles for all of the work that you have done in helping to get us to this point. So, I mean, we could not have done this without you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you,
Much
guys.
love,
I
much
appreciate it.
appreciation. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. This
And,
is our
and
legacy.
Nick for leading the reconciliation ship. So he's been the driver behind this the whole time. So thank you, Nick.
No doubt. So certainly to the day
So what is
ones.
next steps from here today, from today?
So next step, so that 3PV will take the recommendations along with all the other discussions that we've had about what is to be included in the final report, and they will start getting all that stuff together as they've been doing so far. For us as a commission, I think what Commissioner Snowden brought up is very important. So we will start to think about what our advocacy looks like. The final report will be ready by December. General Assembly is the next month. So we want to, as he said, make sure this doesn't get lost in the sauce. Certainly we have connections with the Reparations Commission. So again, for those that don't know, the way that the bill was created, there will be one representative from the MLTRC on the Reparations Commission. So that legacy does continue beyond us. So we will want to think about how we link our work with that potential work as well. And a lot of, I think, transition to advocacy is kind of the major point where we're at now.
Did the Reparations Commission, did they end up passing it over the veto?
They haven't taken an official vote yet. I don't know when they're going to do it. I guess maybe they'll wait till the General Assembly in next year. But all indication is that they will do it. So it's just a matter of when, not if. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, David. I have been in talks. I went to the University of Maryland, their uncharted waters, and that seemed to be the discussion, is that they would be doing that. And just to share with this group, things have been moving so fast paced here. I didn't have a chance to share. Delegate Ashanti Martinez asked to host a community conversation at Riversdale. It's going to be this coming Thursday, the 18th in the evening, and it will be on reparations, specifically on what a reparations commission could look like. So if people are interested in attending, I'll send it to the full commission, but I just wanted to share that. He asked for Riversdale to be the host site. He is like in our district, so we can accommodate that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Commissioner Davis. Appreciate you. So, yeah, I think it's going to happen. And again, that gives us an opportunity to set the tone, I think, quite honestly, for what the Reparations Commission will do. We hope that they'll take from what we just voted on, quite honestly, and build upon that as what reparations could and should look like for the state. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. You gave us an extra 7 minutes. Thank you for that. And we'll see you in a few weeks, about a month. Yeah, because we shifted. Okay. Yeah, we'll see you in about a month. All right, we'll talk before that. Thank y'all.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.